Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So what I'll do, I will briefly walk you through the user interface which you'll be working when dealing with Snowflake most of the time. In previous lecture, I discussed about the Snowflake architecture, very simple architecture, three-layer architecture. I hope you found that video useful, and I would highly encourage you to go and check that out if you haven't watched that. Now, obviously, what I'm going to do, I'll walk you through a few of the things which you'll be working on day-to-day basis when you're dealing with Snowflake. Now, there are a lot of options as you can see on the interface. So the first thing first, right? When you log in for the first time, if this is the first time using Snowflake, obviously you will see interface something like this, right? Which means that all the controls on the left panel, left hand side is hidden. You could expand this by using show navigation option. Now, under show navigation, you have projects, you have ingestions, you have transformations, you have artificial intelligence and machine learning, you have monitoring, you have marketplace, catalogs. Under catalogs, you have data sharing, governance, security, compute, and you have admins, right? Now, before I go into get into any of this stuff, right? I just wanted to mention, if you come down a bit, you will see something here which calls with my name here, Vikas Cohen, and then an account admin role, right? This is the role which got assigned to me by default when I register or logged into the Snowflake for the first time. Now, obviously, account admin roles are important when you wanted to configure stuff, right? For instance, when you wanted to, do admin stuff, right? Create a database or maybe, dropping a table or, other stuff. And there are a lot of things you could do with other roles as well. Like if you look at the roles, you have org admin, you have a public role, you have security admin, which is something to do with security side of things, and you have the sysadmin roles. Um, so it's important that if you get some time to go through each role in Salesforce. Sorry, Snowflake. My apologies. I'm still using Salesforce. Seems like I still hasn't got the Salesforce out of my mind. Been working on the Salesforce for such a long time, so my apologies for that, and totally inappropriate on this context. Um, so yeah, so that's something you have to consider because what might happen, right? You might try to do something and then you get access denied or permissions not there, so you just have to just keep in mind, right? So if you ask me, right, in simple terms, what is a role? It defines a set of privileges which identify what action you can perform or a user can perform and what data or objects they can access. In simple terms, right? I hope that's very, very simple. So if you look at the hierarchy of the um, um, the role, right? I can explain to you some, like, let's look at one by one, right? I think I basically covered briefly to explain the naming of each roles, but if you look at account admin, right, it's the highest role in an account, right? You can do pretty much everything, like I said, right? You can create, user, manage, warehouse, billings, all kind of stuff. Then we have, so let's forget about the org admin for a while. Let's look at the public. So public is a default role that every user has. Um, it's a pretty basic access, right? Then you go to security admin, right? So if you wanted to manage users' roles and their privileges, security admin is the one. Then it's just a Snowflake learning role is just a Snowflake, learning role, right? And Yeah, and then you have sysadmin role, which manages all database objects and warehouse, typically used by developers or data engineers, right? So that's a very basic rundown. I know we can get into more details about the roles, but for now, I think that's a pretty good start, right? Okay, so now since we talked about the role and now we are in the admin setting, a few things you can do, right? So, for instance, um, some UI side, if you don't like this white background, you can change it to dark, um, which is pretty. I've seen most people use the dark background. Um, I prefer to use uh, the system background, which is what I find comfortable. Then you have all other stuff here, right? Connect the tools to Snowflake and session details and all, right? So don't have to worry about it. Now, the project is where, which is more important. Now, workspace, right? You have workspace, you have notebooks. Workspace is where you do most of your work, like you do most of your queries and other good stuff, right? I'll just show you a very simple example. Now, obviously, um, I do expect you to have some understanding of the SQL query. If you don't, that's fine. I could explain in one of the episode how different uh, SQL commands and all kind of stuff, right? So for now, what I wanted to do, I wanted to access um, a table, right? So I can write up my SQL query here, and I'll show you how nice and easy. Now, obviously, I have to. So this is my workspace. So and here is if you come here, it's under the context of account admin. I'm running this as an admin, and this is the warehouse. So obviously, I did explain to you the warehouse in the previous episode. If you do not know what warehouse is, a warehouse we also call it a virtual warehouse. Is a compute engine, right, that performs all processing tasks such as running queries, loading data, and performing transformation. Think of it as a processing power in the cloud, right? Um, it gives you pretty much a compute resource like CPU, memory, temporary storage, which is needed to execute an operation. So it is completely separate from a storage layer, which we discussed in a previous episode, which holds your data, right? Now, so obviously, when you start for the first time, you choose the smaller one, then, you can extend it. But for now, yeah. Now, and here you choose which table and schema. So I will choose the sample data and I will choose the schema and I'll select here and let's start the query. Um, Select, you see the nice intelligence, select star from. Um, so if you press Control Shift, will give you the options. So I wanted to see the customer information. Um, so if I run that, um, it will run the query for you. It's taking some time because it's doing a complete table scan now, which means that it goes through the entire table structure, right? Now, um, obviously we have lots of records, so that's why it's taking time. Now, if I cancel the query, and I will say um, limit to 5, right? Let's see if it takes time. Okay, so that is pretty handy. So obviously you can see that it returns 5 records for me, which is what I'm after. And you can see if you go to 5 rows, I click on this query ID, it will give you the query plan. This is very important, in my opinion. It will tell you the best way you can optimize your query, right? So, yeah. So, and this is a query telemetry. I haven't said anything here, and the query details, right? Success. It tells you session, start time, warehouse you used, and all kind of good stuff. So I'll close this, And if you wanted to look in the form of a chart, you can do that as well. So, which is pretty handy. This is a bar chart. You can change it to line chart or area chart or whatever, right? So you can write all the complex query. You can create your table. You can create your staging place. You can create views. You can import the data. You can load the data. You can insert it. All kind of great stuff which you can do using a normal SQL. You can do that, right? So that's in nutshell from a workspace perspective, right? From very basic, and you can also share your work this SQL file, um, and you can also download it, and you can also format it, right? Which is also pretty cool. Whichever way you want to work with the queries. Okay, now we go to notebooks, right? Notebooks is pretty common, right? I mean, you go to Kaggle, you go to Jupyter Notebook. So if you are someone who's been working on machine learning space, you would have used Jupyter Notebook a lot, right? So it's something on that line. So you could create a new notebook, or if you wanted to use an existing one, you can load from a template, which is very handy. So something similar from a Jupyter Notebook. Then you can use the Python, right? Which is, in my opinion, a pretty powerful language, and it's quite uh, very popular because of artificial intelligence. So I won't get into the details. We can get into the details when we try to do some machine learning stuff, right? There are a lot of things we can do, but today I just wanted to give you an overview what an interface looks like, right? So I just don't want to get into too much detail. I know it's an exciting space. Even I'm excited, right? Machine learning, AI, what not to, what is there not to get excited about, right? Now we have something called Streamlit, right? This is you perhaps what the heck is this, right? So Streamlit in Snowflake, it's a it will help you build and deploy interactive data application directly inside the Snowflake platform. That sounds a bit of a mouthful, right? Okay, so it is an open source Python framework. If you look at Streamlit, right? So you could build your data apps with minimalistic coding, right? If I put that way, and so you could build apps within the Snowflake environment uh, without needing an external web server or additional infrastructure. So you don't need to worry about infrastructure, right? Snowflake will take care of it. You just have to build, um, like going here, and you can build your Streamlit app. It's that simple, right? So that's it. So that's in a pretty simple nutshell. Now you must be wondering, why do I even need this one, right? So the few, you could create, data exploration tool app using it. You could create data validation or query checks. You could do, some. Um, you could do, the dashboard for sales and marketing, and directly from a Snowflake. So we'll get into that details. So just for now, if someone asks you what is a Streamlit, right? So it it's based on an open source Python framework, right? That's what it is, and you can build your data apps. Then you have your dashboard, right, which is fantastic. You can build your dashboards. You can create a dashboard. You can build your dashboard using um, your notebook or your so-called worksheet. Then you have app packages, which is you can You can, if you wanted to start with the Snowflake native apps, you can use come here. You can do the stuff here, right? Um, so I'm not going to get into the details here. Templates are important. If you wanted to, say, build some things using out-of-box template, you can come here, use there. For instance, I'll show you an example. Um, you don't have to do everything from scratch, right? You could use a template and you can customize it, right? It's that simple. So it's just to help you speed up your stuff, right? So yeah. And data ingestion, if you wanted to import the data to Snowflake, for instance, like you see, I've been a Salesforce architect for years, right? And I've worked with ServiceNow as well. So we sometimes, even now I do, Salesforce stuff, right? So we do inject the stuff to Snowflake. So we do use connectors. So you could use connector, or you could also ingest or inject, right? Whatever term. Data from other source to Snowflake, right? Which is pretty good. So as you can see, you have a lot of option here how you can bring your data to Snowflake. You can use it. You can bring from S3. You could bring from um, ServiceNow. You could bring from Salesforce. Transformation, if you will have it popular, so we'll get into that detail later. So just remember for now, uh, AL and ML. So you do have machine learning stuff. You could use, Cortex. You can use Studio. Let's look at the Studio. You can use Document AI. I know this is an exciting part. Many people get excited when it comes to machine learning. You can build your model using the data. You can do LLMs and all kind of stuff, right? You can do forecasting, Cortex search, and anomaly detection, classification, all kind of great stuff you can do, right? If you're a machine learning engineer, Snowflake is a great place, right? So, but I'm not going to get into that at this stage. That's pretty much a bit of an advanced topic because if you wanted to get into machine learning, you need to understand what classification means, what supervised learning means, what unsupervised learning means, what the reinforcement learning means, right? And then we enter into the deep learning conversation, right? Where large language models and all kind of neural networks and fancy stuff, right? I just don't want to get into that at this stage, but if you want, we can do that later, right? Monitoring, you query history, services and jobs and traces and logs, performance explorer, all kind of great stuff, right? Um, so we got a query flavor. So it just, how do I say, right? It's, if you wanted to measure the health of a query, um, you can come here and look at it, right? Marketplace, if you wanted to sell your data or buy certain apps, you can do that, right? You can do data for good. You can just let's here talk about that later. It just just remember it's a data sharing. If you can do that. be thinking I'm skipping a lot of things, but I believe at this stage you don't need to know. I'm not saying they're not important, they're very important, but since we are beginning to learn this stuff, I just wanted to be make sure I don't overwhelm you. If you are somebody who's experienced with Snowflake, I really appreciate your patience because I just wanted to make sure I cover stuff from a beginner perspective. Then I'll get into very detailed, advanced stuff, right? So for now, I wanted to take it slow, if that's helpful. Compute, you talk about the warehouse, explain what warehouses are, right? So this is the one I'm working with, so I don't worry about that. Um, and then you have the compute pools. So you can talk about, you can create a compute pool if you like. There's some more admin stuff, right? Then you have a cost management, which tells you $1, and I still got 28 days, and I got 399 credit. Um, kind of stuff, right? Cover from a very basic overview perspective. Now, you must be thinking, yeah, that's all good, right? But I covered only few elements, but that's exactly what I wanted to do. The reason why I wanted to do because like I said, I don't want to overwhelm you guys. It's a beginning, right? We have a lot of things to do, right? We got 28 days, so we are good to go. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover. I hope you enjoyed this session. That being said, hope you guys have an amazing. What day is it? Tuesday. Adios.